postponement, and Sky Forrester's going to step in and talk to us a little bit like the format today, where he's going to start off with a little presentation about the situation in Ukraine and Putin and all of the areas of his expertise, and then he's going to go to questions. And I think that'll be a good opportunity for us to ask some things from someone that's got a lot of experience in that region. Now, Nancy, I think most of the people here already know this, but just in case, Nancy used to be our moderator. I think it was called president at the time, and has been active here for about 30 years. I remember her parents, Joe and Joanne Henjum, used to sit, I don't know, fourth row, third row, right in there somewhere, and Nancy's call to service, I think, is deeply embedded in her family, because her father, I'll give a shout out to her father, Joe, who was a co-founder of Homefront Cares and the Colorado Mobility Coalition, Pikes Peak Mobility Coalition, and so on and so forth. So I'm really grateful that we have people in this world that are willing to do the kind of service that she does, and with all of her experience that led up to her being able to do that. I'd also give a shout out to her husband, Steve, who's also a popular forum speaker on all kinds of topics and has just recently stepped down from the Law Enforcement, Transparency, Accountability, Advisory, something, Commission, there you go, LETAC, I knew that. Anyway, with that, I'd like to present my city councilwoman, Nancy Henjum.
Good morning. I'm nervous. I know, everybody says this is your family, but that's probably why, because you're my family. I have been a member of this community for over 30 years, I think, and it's been probably the most important community in my life, and seen me through incredible joy and pain and sorrow, and I'm so grateful for this community, so thanks. So, you've heard the phrase, drinking from a fire hose? That has been my experience of sitting on City Council and the board of Colorado Springs Utilities. And this is a real fire helmet. It is, you got to come check it out. Yesterday, actually, I was able to bring my husband, Steve, with me. I did a fire ops training with our fire department, sponsored by Local 5. And I know we all have tremendous gratitude and esteem for our fire department, our firefighters, but I'll tell you what, it goes to another level when you put on a 75-pound suit and you climb up a ladder and go into a smoky room where you can't see anything and try to carry out a body and carry a fire hose. Those are very heavy, with an oxygen tank, which adds more weight than the 75 pounds you're already wearing. We got to use the jaws of life to open a car and rescue people. It's an incredibly physical job, and certainly dangerous, and huge gratitude for our Colorado Springs Fire Department and the opportunity to learn more. So, my point of drinking from a fire hose is that I have been learning so much in the last year and a half. I was elected in April of 2021. And so I've been on for a year and a half now, and I feel like I'm maybe just finally starting to get my feet a little bit on the ground. I do want to acknowledge that joining us here today is my predecessor, former city council person, the Honorable Jill Gabler. Jill, would you welcome Jill? Raise your hand, Jill, they want to see you. She has spoken to this congregation many times before, and very grateful to her. I've learned she's been a great mentor for me, and I'm really appreciative of her service, and now understand what she went through. So I actually want to start, if you wouldn't mind. I don't know that many of you necessarily were at the swearing in which was in April of 2021. I'm not going to read my whole remarks. They're only 3 minutes, but I am going to read, if you don't mind, just a few of my remarks because I wanted to go back and revisit what I said when I was sworn in as kind of that, how am I doing? And so we'll see. But these are just a few of my words from my swearing in. I am humbled by the duties and responsibilities of this office, which must deliver on the twin promises of good governance and leadership with integrity. What does that mean to me? Good governance is participatory, consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective, efficient, equitable, inclusive, and honorable. Good governance assures that the needs of all residents, including the most vulnerable, are respected in decision-making. Good governance is responsive to both the present and future needs of Colorado Springs. I believe that good governance should be power with, not power over. We benefit from attending to all perspectives. The voice of every resident should be heard. I intend to lead first by listening and asking questions. I believe that we are all connected. What impacts one impacts all of us. I intend to lead on behalf of each of the neighborhoods in District 5, as well as the city as a whole. I believe in collaboration, in reckoning with differences to forge joint solutions. I intend to lead by assuming good intention and prioritizing relationships. That has not always been easy. So as we celebrate 150 years as a city, I ask, what can we learn from our history that will help us determine what no longer serves us and that we should therefore leave behind? That will help us identify the best of who we are to carry forward. That will help us plan for a future Colorado Springs that is resilient, vibrant, thriving, and that lives the Olympic values. That will ensure we are respectful of the land, her beauty, gifts, and resources that make our life here so extraordinary and that obligate us to be good stewards on behalf of generations to come. So that is kind of my, sorry about that. That is my intention as I lead in this role. And as I said, it's not always been easy, and I've certainly not been perfect at it because, as you all know, I don't believe in perfection, and we learn from our mistakes, and I've made plenty of them. But I want to just start with an overview of City Council and give you just kind of a general sense of our city government. And by the way, I have up here, for those of you who want them, our annual report, City Council's annual report. I have enough copies probably here for everybody. I hope that those who are interested, will take one. And also the 2022 budget in brief. It's the Citizen's Guide to our budget for 2022. So those are available up here on the steps if you would like to get them at any point. But I'm going to just start with an overview and give you a sense also of what I've been focusing on and what I care about. And then I'm going to open it up for questions and just have a conversation. That's what I'd really like to do. So with that, okay, here we are, Colorado Springs City Council. I'm trying to do this. I guess I can see these. Okay, so these are our city council members. These are our city council members. There are 9 of us, 3 at large. Tom Strand, who's our president. Randy Helms is president pro tem. He's the representative for District 2. At large also are Bill Murray and Wayne Williams, down there on the bottom right. And then Dave Donaldson is District 1, Stephanie Fortune, District 3, Yolanda Avila, District 4, myself in District 5, and Mike O'Malley in District 6. As you probably know, we are remunerated at $6,250 a year, which if you didn't know that, you need to know that, and you need to be aghast at that because of the work that is involved is tremendous. Not only for those who are in the role to be to earn some kind of a living wage, but more importantly, that we can have people run for city council who could earn a living wage, because it is not representative as it is now. Yeah. So that's true, and we all know that we have an election coming up in November. That's a really important one, but our municipal elections are coming up, are always in April. And this coming April is a really, really, in 2023, really important municipal election. So please be aware and pay attention. We will have a new mayor. Mayor Suthers will be term limited, ending after 8 years. We will have 3 at-large positions in the race, and very likely, or at least certainly quite possibly, 2 of our district positions, because as you all know, I know in this congregation, Richard Scorman left his position early and Stephanie Fortune was appointed. So she will have to run, or someone will have to run, that position will have to run again in April. And then Dave Donaldson is running for the House, the State House, District 16, and should he win, that seat will be open. So we may have as many as 5 new city council members. It's a body of 9. That's huge. There's so much learning and so much experience that's on the council now that will be walking out the door. So that's really big, plus a new mayor. It's a really, really important time. So please do pay attention to your municipal elections. Oops, there's our district map. And in the middle there, the pink is District 5, and that's my district. This church does not sit in District 5, by the way. It sits in District 3. But as you can see, District 5 is really the core of the city. It is the quote-unquote landlocked district, if you will, the only district that is surrounded by all other districts, and all other districts have some kind of border with the county. Okay. Oops, did I go a little quick on the draw? Oh. Wait, this keeps going forward. Why not backward? Am I going backward or forward? Sorry. Oh, wow. Okay. These are our roles and responsibilities. We adopt the city budget and appropriate funds. We approve the issuance of local improvement district bonds. I'm not touching it. Oh. It might be easier to have you advance them for me. Thank you. Okay. Approve the issuance of local improvement district bonds, special districts. Govern the city operations through legislative policies, ordinances, and resolutions. Go ahead to the next one. Hear land use items that are considered quasi-judicial matters, such as rezoning, applications, and appeals. We just had a recent appeal of an apartment up in District 2. Not too long before that, we had an appeal of a project here in District 5 that we listened to. We hear annexations. By the way, there's a really significant annexation that will be coming to us soon. You might want to ask me about that later. And land easement acquisitions, conveyances, and sales. And we provide an annual report. Don't forget, I brought them for you. And other administrative actions. Next one. We do approve the city's personnel policies. We oversee the city auditor, reports to city council. It's an independent arm. And audits everything from our utilities to all the city departments. And then the city council administrator, who oversees the city council staff, which supports us, which are marvelous human beings, by the way. She reports to us. Emily Evans is her name. And then we also, and this is like the last bullet, but in some respects should probably be really elevated as one of the most important things we do. We serve as the board of directors for our citizen-owned, ratepayer-owned, for-service utilities, almost $5 billion a year enterprise. So that's significant. Then you can go on to the next slide. So our commitments, really connecting with constituents, listening to constituent needs and concerns. Certainly plenty of ceremonies and events and ribbon cuttings and and groundbreakings and all those sorts of things, appearances, and you have to decide how much of that you want to attend, and I'm kind of, I think, figuring that out as well, I hope. And also, very importantly, serving on boards as voting members, and I'll show you in just a moment which ones I serve on. Then there are the commissions. You heard about LETAC that my husband Steve served on. We have liaisons to many of our citizen appointed commissions that serve city council, and then committees and working groups. There are many of them. Go ahead and go on to the next one. So I have highlighted for you here. Yeah, thank you for that reaction. Now you understand the fire hose, right? Now, one could ask, should I be doing all of these things? That's a reasonable question. But I am. So I am the chair of the Finance Committee for our CSU utility. I'm also serve on the Economic Development and Subcommittee. As a board member, and these are really important boards that I serve on as a voting board member, recently stood up Opioid Policy Council, which is that settlement money that's been coming from pharmacy companies run through the Attorney General's office and distributed to all the counties in the state. Ours is El Paso County and Teller County, and I can tell you more about that in question and answer, but I will just say that's a super important one because it will be over 18 years distributing probably $32 to $35 million to our community for opioid and fentanyl-related services. The Fountain Creek Watershed District Board member, which, by the way, our former, I know you all love Richard Scorman so much, and that was really his baby. I have taken that up as well, and I'm not going to speak more about that right now, but that's certainly an important one. The Downtown Development Authority, which administers the tax increment financing for downtown, that's a voting position as well. And then the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, which is all our member governments from Teller and El Paso County, making primarily decisions on transit, transportation, and issues on aging. And then I am the liaison to the Public Arts Commission, the Historic Preservation Board, the Citizens Transportation Advisory Board. I've been a member of Connect COS as an advisory member, and I also just finished, not too long ago, the Special Districts Policy Review Committee, which how many of you, raise your hand if you know what a metro district is or a special district? Okay, about half of you. Those districts are stood up, they're quasi-governmental entities. That is how we develop land in Colorado Springs, really essentially since Tabor. We do not build roads and put in infrastructure with your general fund dollars. That all happens through mill levies that go on your property taxes. And those districts, I think, probably more or less since they started, City Council has approved over close to $1 billion worth of tax monies, property tax monies, to make those new developments happen. That's a huge topic, mind numbing in some ways for me, but really, really important to understand. So I chose to be on that policy committee, and we voted on an updated policy just this summer. Go ahead and go on to the next one. So I'm not going to go into the budget for you, but I think it is important to just kind of at a high level see how much of our budget in general fund is dedicated to public safety. Fire being significant and police being almost 50%. So this is where budget positions by department, this gives you a sense of where our general fund budgets go. So kind of take note of that. Did you have a question, Charles? It is based on a fully subscribed police force, which right now is 805 positions, and we are at about 740-ish. I'm actually meeting with the police chief on Tuesday to talk about that. So we are not fully subscribed, but yes. Okay, going on to the next one. And this is our general fund revenue. So as you can see, our general fund in the city is primarily through sales and use tax. Look at how little of our city's general fund is funded by your property tax bill. And your property tax bill goes to pay for your schools. If you're in a special district, you're paying special district funds there, the library district, county, your county dollars are going there. But really for the city, you can see the majority is sales and use tax. and other intergovernmental fees, charges for services, et cetera. So go ahead and go on to the next one. That 8.2% sales tax broken down, it is important, and we are, by the way, I'm sure most of you know this, but as a city, in comparison to other cities our size, we actually spend the least amount per capita on individual citizens than any other city our size. So there's a lot to be proud of in that, because we are really very fiscally conservative, and we use our dollars extremely well. And you could also argue that perhaps we could afford to spend a little bit more. That's not a popular thing to say as a politician, but it's true. Now, that being said, one thing that is true for our region is that when we go to the voters for something very, very specific, and the voters agree that this is what we really need to pay for, they will fund it. So you've got the Trails and Open Space, right? That actually just lost last November because there was some concern about how that money was being used. The public safety sales tax goes strictly for our public safety. And 2C road tax actually goes to trails and roads. I'm going to highlight in particular the PPRTA, which I am going to make a plug. I can say this. I really hope that all of you will vote in favor of PPRTA in November. It is essential. It is how we deal with road infrastructure in this region. It is critical. It may not be perfect, but it is so important. If that doesn't pass, we are in a world of hurt. So please vote yes and encourage anybody you know to vote yes on PPRTA. But it's the slogan for PPRTA is promises made, promises kept, right? That we will use your tax dollars the way we told you we would use them. So I think that's something to really be proud of. Yes, Connie. Okay, yeah, fees. Okay, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole because I'm not sure exactly. State. Okay, it gets very complicated. Okay, so go ahead and go on to the next one. In the final budget, I just want to show you at a high level is the 2022 utilities budget. And we will be actually voting on our 2023 budget soon. I will just say this to you, that there's a lot of concern, some reporting about it going up 26%. You need to know that the vast majority of that is contingency funds for fuel and for the uncertainty of fuel prices. That is not all in operations. In fact, probably only, I don't know exactly, 5-6% of that is operations, salary increases, other things. So that's really important for you to know. When you read things, ask to learn more. If you read something that is alarming to you, make sure you understand. I think there's been some misinformation printed about our utilities budget. Go ahead and go on to the next one. So this is just really about how folks can reach City Council. This data is provided by our constituent services specialist, Sam Friedman, who, by the way, is just one of the best. He's amazing. I love him so much, and he makes, yes, I see some claps there. Charles, yep, and Charles comes and speaks. Charles over here comes and speaks to City Council often and uses that City Council comments, which are kept in this data right here. So this data represents really all the touches that come to City Council as a whole. This does not represent the amount of time that I individually meet with people or spend time on the phone with people. There's no way Sam could track that for 9 different council members. So this is really data that just represents the council as a whole. Second bullet point there, for those of you who don't know about the GoCOS app, if you have a smartphone, or it's also available on your computer in the city website, GoCOS, amazing tool for reporting a pothole, graffiti, you see a homeless camp you're concerned about, you name it, trees, whatever it might be related to city infrastructure. You can also just report anything to City Council through GoCOS. It's very easy to use, and it gets attention. So I have found it very helpful myself, and that is one of the ways that people reach us. Go ahead and go to the next one. So a little bit about my own area of focus and primary concerns. Responsible growth. We are growing tremendously as a city. A lot of people are not happy about that. Some people are very happy about that. It just depends on where you sit, how long you've lived here. You know, if you're new, Leanne, you're happy, right? Public safety also, as I'm sure so many of you know, whether it's traffic and traffic accidents, gun crime, challenges in police response time, the dispatch response time. There's so many issues related to public safety. That's certainly a significant concern. Transportation, and by that I mean moving people. And there's a little bit of a battle in our city as well about, you know, should we be cars and just widen the roads and make more roads so that we can get our cars through efficiently? That's important. But what about the bikes? So the bike lanes, you know, road dieting. I mean, people get very upset about that stuff. But really, it's about moving people in as many ways as we possibly can efficiently. And so that's something I'm really working on, paying attention to. And Jill Gabler was very, very focused on that. It was something very important to her, and she's helped advance that, I think, quite a bit in our city, and grateful to her for that. Public engagement and trust building. So you probably heard that in my comments that I read at the beginning. We've heard Sky Forrester talk about this, and Pam Shockley-Zalabak talked to us just recently about trust. And this is just super important to me. And we live in such, I don't have to tell you what a divisive time that it is. So I really spend a lot of my time thinking about this and doing what I can to continue to increase engagement in local government, just with one another, and building that trust through listening and transparency and all the ways that we can do that. And then collaboration. Whether that be working to collaborate with my fellow council members, whether that be helping the city be more collaborative within their departments, and functioning a little less siloed. By the way, I do need to say, collaboration has been a part of our Mayor Souther's strategic plan, and I believe he's done a tremendous job at moving collaboration forward between the city and the county. There's so many different levels in which you can collaborate, right? But collaboration just is a practice. It's not something you check off a box and you're done. So continuing to work on collaboration as an essential way to get things done. And I will actually share, because I see her, no, is she here? Voices of Grief, are you here? She's not here, okay. I've just blanked on her name. Kathy Sparnans. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Kathy. I'm glad you were not here to hear that live. Because I know her, I love her, and so one of the benefits of this role is actually being able to help people collaborate. So Kathy came to me about her Voices of Grief work, and also Cass, whose last name I'm forgetting, from the Suicide Prevention Collaborative, working on helping Kathy get connected. She was already connected with Cass, but connected with other entities in our city to lift up and raise up the awareness of the work that she's doing. And these are her words, not mine, but that work, and she came and she did a presentation to City Council. She said it dramatically increased the participation in the event that their organization just hosted this last year. How many were at that presentation? A few of you, great. I'm hoping it was great. I'm sure it was fabulous, yeah. So there's collaboration in all forms and ways, and that's something that I'm really striving to do. And then really specific projects and legislation, and these are just a few of them, but I do want, because this is very present right this moment, and on October 5th, there will be a public meeting. You know, we have one senior center for our entire city, and it is over in the Gulf Acres project. It's in District 5. How many of you know where the senior center is? Yay, most of you. So you probably have heard or read that that there's the city has, the mayor determined that he wanted to use $8 million of the ARPA funds to renovate, or actually rebuild, that senior center, which is fabulous. But most of that property over there, not all of it, is actually owned by the city, and it's one of the few pieces of property where the city is a landlord, essentially. And so there's got to be some determination about what's going to happen with the land that isn't used for the new senior center, and when how will that be designed, and what's that going to look like. So that is happening. I'm, of course, very involved in that, and I want to make sure that we hear as many voices as possible, not just in that district, but across the city, because it is our only senior center. And as you know, Art has talked about my dad. My dad started the Senior Resource Council, and I've got to carry on that attention to needs of our seniors. So I'm excited about that. And there's also some tension around that. People are nervous and afraid about what's going to happen. So if you know anybody who's interested, come to that public meeting. It will be actually at the Senior Center on Hancock this coming Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. Housing, whether it be affordability, attainability, homelessness, there's so much to say here. I do want to just stop for a moment and say another way in which I've helped to create collaboration is when I came onto City Council, there were sessions happening that were helping us understand why we have a housing affordability crisis. And we had a couple of sessions sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. By the way, our chair of our Chamber of Commerce, Andrea Barker, is also a member of our church, and she's here today. Yeah, thank you, Andrea. The Chamber of Commerce, the HBA, and the Downtown Partnership hosted these series of sessions on affordable housing. And after two of them, we kind of all recognized that we were beautifully admiring the problem, but we weren't getting to solutions. And so really, with the help and support of many others, I really helped to bring together all those folks and more to actually start talking about what are the solutions that we can develop. And out of that, a year later, we have now an ongoing group called CHAT. I don't remember what it stands for. That's working on this across functions. People across all different kinds of areas are working together. Also, what came out of that was some legislation that City Council passed this summer for tax rebates and credits for multi-family builders who choose to have, whether it's one unit or a whole floor or however much of their building is built as truly affordable housing as defined by HUD, they will get a rebate on all the building materials for that percentage of the building. Now, in this day and age, thank you, yeah, yay. It's probably a drop in the bucket, but it is something. It's an attempt to address that. We also passed, and this was work that Steve Posey in our Community Development Office had been working on long before I came around, but we voted on this summer a fee rebate program that is also really working on creating and generating more affordable housing. Regarding homelessness, I did want to let you all know. So this church, FCC, this is what I had wanted to talk to you, Leanne, about before today. We are a partner organization with the organization called Cause I Love You, Colorado Springs I Love You. And it was founded a number of years ago by Yemi Mobolade and I think someone else, I can't remember who he did that with. But it is an organization really dedicated to helping all the churches in our community love the city in very practical, real-world, hands-on ways. Yesterday was their fall City Serve event. I don't know if anybody here participated in that. I would love to see us reconsider or consider getting a little bit more involved in Cause I Love You, because it is really, that organization is helping the church extend Christ's hands into the world. And so they just had last week an event, a leadership, they do this yearly, it was my second one, they invited the mayor. And what I learned about in that leadership event, and it was the mayor and a few many elected folks and mostly pastors and other community leaders at that leadership event. And it was about, it brought us together to talk about unity as a community and how as leaders, what do we have in common and how important is it that we identify those values that we all, whatever your political stripe is, what do we all care about and how do we all move that forward? It was very powerful. And in that, they shared the story of the beginning of the Greenway Flats, which is a transitional housing unit down by Springs Rescue Mission that the city actually contributed quite a bit to, as well as many others, to fund and build. They told the story of how that came to be 8 years ago when Mayor Suthers came to a Cause I Love You leadership event. And as he told the story, I won't tell his whole story, but basically he told the story. He was asked a lot of personal questions and ended up sharing a lot. And out of that came this energy and belief that we need to do something more for the homeless in our community. And out of that came what you now know is as many of the services of Springs Rescue Mission and the Greenway Flats and other services. So, you know, kudos to Mayor Suthers and to that organization for continuing to encourage us and inspire us to work together. They, at the end of that session, and I happened to be sitting at a table with, I think it's Mark Wester, who heads ComCore, and the City Hope Project, which maybe some of you read about in the paper recently. They're running out of funding. It's a place for homeless families, and it was funded mostly through COVID dollars. They're running out of money. So this church has been very involved in when it was Interfaith Hospitality Network and then became what? Family Promise. But Cause I Love You, to that room and to those churches, let us know that the city has dedicated $500,000 to restoring the R.J. Montgomery building on the south end of town near Widener Homes. Widener, no, maybe it's it's $250,000 from the city, $75,000 from Widener Homes, and Stu Davis, the executive director of Cause I Love You, was inviting all of the churches present to add to the additional $75,000 needed. Really, they needed it by October 1st, yesterday, commitment, to getting this renovation done so that we can begin to house families who are homeless in that. I mean, there's still time for us to get involved as a church, I'm sure, if we want to. But those are the kinds of things that are being generated through Cause I Love You. Okay, so sustainability. Actually, not with this council. It's not going to happen with this council, but I'm hoping with a future council, we will actually do something about all of the gazillion trash haulers that we have who rip up our roads and don't... Yeah, okay, so I don't have to sell it to you guys probably, but would like to see some legislation about that. Our city sustainability office, Samantha Bailey, wrote and received a significant grant, I don't remember how much money, but to do a waste characterization study for all of El Paso County. Apparently, I just learned, are gonna maybe partner with Manitou to look at all of our waste streams, every single one of them, and how we can do it more efficiently and sustainably. So want to kind of utilize some of the work that happens there and possibly get some legislation out of that. Again, it's not gonna happen now, but these things sometimes take time, right, Jill? So, City Council pay, already talked about that. I met a few weeks ago with President Pro Tem Randy Helms, and we are very committed, not for our own sake, but for the future of this city that has had a strong mayor now for 8 years and really needs a council equivalent to support, to be stronger in that form of government that we have. So we're targeting right now, I mean, I don't know, this could change, but imagining November of 2024 for a ballot initiative there. So that's something that we're beginning to talk about and work on. And then finally, I just really care about the people who were on these lands before we, and that is not something that gets much attention in our city government. And I just started those conversations. I started, honestly, with wanting to do a land acknowledgement in City Council. You know, I'm going to say what I've learned is actually the indigenous people would much rather have land than an acknowledgement read at the beginning of every meeting. So I don't know where that's going to go, but that's something I'm also, and those are just a few of the things. So with that, and you can go to the final slide. I think I've talked enough, and I would love to be able to answer some questions and hear your thoughts as well.
So, before we start, I just would like to say thank you, and maybe just 5 seconds of sending our energy positive towards this woman who is trying to drink the fire hose. So.
How much time did I talk? We have until about 12, so we've got about 15 minutes. Oh my God, did I talk for 45 minutes? Jesus. Okay, that was not my intention, I swear. Yeah, sure. Yes. Hi, Marcia.
Nancy,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
You are getting paid like 5 cents a meeting, I think, something like that. I really got the hint that you wanted to maybe have a question about the annexation thing that's coming up. And so I'd like to ask that question.
Okay. Yeah, happy to. So as it relates to growth, and I didn't really talk about it, but water is just probably the thing I lose the sleep about the most and could not be more important in our community right now, and I know you all know that. And by the way, just as a future potential, Rob, speaker here, we have some amazing water experts at utilities, and I know they would be delighted to come, and I could join them as a board member, but it would be great to hear from our utilities folks about water. So yeah, water and annexation. So we have, about a third of the landmass of our city is already annexed in Banning Lewis Ranch, and it has, beginning to be developed. And so that's important, and that we do that right and well, and with thinking about water in mind. But we do have an annexation that will be coming to us, I don't know, in the next number of months. It keeps getting delayed, but it's down in the near the city of Fountain, and it's actually bordered by Fountain on 3 sides, and it's known as Amara, or I'm forgetting the other name that it's known by, but it's a significant piece of property. I think 6,000 acres, something like that. It's very large. I don't retain the numbers very well, I'm sorry, but it can have a lot of people. And so from the perspective of should the city council decide to annex that, and we may, I don't know, we have a lot of questions yet to ask. The impact on public safety is really significant. In terms of we are not fully staffed as a police force right now, and driving 9 miles across unincorporated county to go to Fountain to serve, I just don't. I'm struggling to understand how that works, and then water. Water is also an issue. So do we have? Right now, I will tell you, we do not have the water we need for 70 years from now for the projected growth. We're good for quite a while. We really are, and we're acquiring more water rights, and you could, argue, how much do we continue to acquire? I mean, that's a very big conversation, but 70 years from now, we don't have the water that we need. So I just have a lot of questions about that, and I will be asking them. We'll be having special work sessions, a special work session at City Council about this annexation in particular, because it is so large, very different from an enclave that's like 15 houses in the middle of the city that just needs to come in the city. It makes perfect sense. It's a very different kind of situation. So, just be on the lookout for that in the news, and pay attention. Come to the work session, or ask me about it, or I'll learn about it. But thank you. It's significant, and it's significant because of the impacts related to water and public safety, and actually the city of Fountain isn't particularly thrilled with it either. So yes, Charles. Oh, sorry. I think let's do Charles Barber first, and then go to you, Charles Cascaris. Okay.
I have 2 statements for you. One is thank you so very much for spending an hour and a half at our neighborhood picnic. this is the second year which you have participated in that for the exposure of like 50 people, but that's double the last neighborhood party we had. So thank you so much for spending that time with our neighborhood.
You're welcome. I love your
Established in
neighborhood
1956.
association. Yes, it's lovely.
But the other statement I have is that we had some sanitary sewer leaks periodically some years ago. An inflatable dam was proposed where it would raise up on demand from some magic person and divert the unclean water from Fountain Creek elsewhere. I was vehemently opposed to that and was successful. The asphalt reservoir now that you see when you cross Fountain Creek with Academy Boulevard has always been empty. And that, my lady, is a tribute to the effectiveness of wastewater controls. We've never had a spill since that time that would warrant any community action, and we've had a couple that were pretty good sized. So thank you so very much for administering the very talented people at Colorado Springs Utilities from one citizen's point of view.
Thank you, Charles, for being so well informed. And I love that this congregation is so well informed because you know more about that than I do. But I agree with you about our staff at Utilities. They are incredible, and our wastewater is so important. Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. Charles Kiskars.
Yeah, thanks, Charles, for mentioning that, because that was one of the questions I had about water and the spills that went down to Pueblo and all the problems and issues with that. So sounds like that's been mitigated and will not happen again, hopefully.
And much thanks to actually the Stormwater Enterprise and the fees that we voted to pay. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot to that, yes.
Right. So the first part was, I read about developers, and our city's constantly talking about growth, or slow growth, or no growth. There's factions on all part of that question. But so I read about developers, new projects, and what percentage or what part is paid to the city for the infrastructure to provide water or other services as for each unit, right? And a lot of people seem to feel that it's very low for the developers. They need to add to the cost of their projects the more realistic portion of what that entails for the city.
Yeah, thank you. That is an extremely important topic. And actually, Jill Gabler probably could speak more knowledgeably to what was negotiated before she left the board than I can. But it depends on who you talk to. That was addressed very in great detail. And all of our wastewater, all 4 of our services, the cost recovery, need to be addressed. And we have our utilities, UPAC, Utilities Public Advisory Committee or Committee, who have just been tasked at our last board meeting this last Wednesday by the board to work on cost recovery methodology in looking at all 4 services. So the current water, what was negotiated, what's currently being done for water and development, I'm not going to say one way or the other. I don't know it off the top of my head well enough to say if I feel good about where it's at, but it is what it is now, and that was, actually I just recently had a meeting with the Home Builders Association in which they said they were told what it was going to be and they were very unhappy about it and they wanted to be more involved with the UPAC when it got started. So depending on who I talk to, I hear different things, like I've been involved, I've not been involved, I'm happy with it, I'm not. But it is really important in terms of growth paying for itself. And how do you determine, for example, we're going to be doing some power upgrades over there on Austin Bluffs. You may have read about that. There's this is where I get, I don't know the terms all that well, but a generation station that's going to cost millions of dollars. It's a huge capital project, but we have to have it for our city as it is now, and it will support growth. So on that one, should the developers pay 100% for that? Probably not. So how do you figure out the methodology for what's fair for essentially what's going to get passed on to new folks who move to town, right? It's the people who are going to buy the houses where that money's going to be passed into. So it's a tension, which actually I want to speak to that. And many of you have known me for a long time and know that I see the world in large part through values that are paired and we often see as opposition to one another. And one of them is really growth, and then there's stability. You know, and how do you manage what moving forward, whether it's historic preservation and moving forward with innovation and change, or it could be justice and mercy. Just had that conversation with Phil Weiser on Friday related to the opioid crisis. That's a big tension in our city. So it's a big tension. Charles, I appreciate you asking the question, and yeah, that's where that's at. I hope that helped.
Nancy, thank you for mentioning the utilities. We have Birgit Landon from CSU coming on the 16th. So make sure you're all here for that.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Nancy. Recently, I've had two brief conversations with my daughter and son-in-law about urban planning. And my son-in-law mentioned, I don't know how to say his name, is it Charles Marone, the Strong Town founder?
Strong Town Group, yeah.
And also the book, I guess it's a classic, The Death and Life of Great American Cities. And I wondered, you were just talking about values, if you could share some of your philosophy in terms of urban planning.
Sure. It's a great question, and it's very, very important and current right now. As many of you, I'm sure, know, we retool, which is the revision of our city's 30-year-old planning code, you know, our Chapter 7, which is our codes in terms of how we develop and plan. And that's being revised right now, and there's a lot of tensions and concerns about what's that going to do and how things are going to look going forward. But in terms of, for myself, I really am seeking, and we have a beautiful plan COS that's a lovely vision for our city that was worked on by the former city council, and in fact, I think Joe Gabler was a big part of heading that up, in the vision of really celebrating and maintaining the vibrancy and the uniqueness of our neighborhoods and their characters, and that's really, really important. And how do we do that, and how do we also build and design in such a way that we make housing that's affordable, that transportation and transit is easier for everybody. They're just tensions related to that. So I see us, the growth is happening. I'm not one to say we should put a moratorium on, although, boy, with the water issue and public safety, we might want to slow down a little bit while we get some of that figured out. But the design, you know, I think we have a lovely downtown that's getting more vibrant and interesting, and I'm really thrilled about that. And how do we ensure that the historic and the neighborhoods that have real character can stay that way, but not so much to being the exclusion of perhaps being able to build a little cottage in your back so your mother can live there, right? So I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's really about finding that balance and making sure that people can move efficiently and effectively and sustainably through our city, regardless of who you are, how much you make, and that there's a place for everybody to live and thrive.
Well, that brings us to noon now, everyone, so I'm afraid we've run out of time. I know we've got a few more questions, perhaps. If Nancy is so gracious,
I
she
can stay.
after.
I know my husband has to leave.
Okay.
And you can take. Are you going to walk or am I going to walk? Okay. I'll need the keys. So I can stay for a little while longer for those who want to. I am having lunch with Jill after this, so we probably can stay another.
Thank you.
few
Let's all give
minutes.
a warm round of applause to Nancy. And don't forget, next week, everyone, we have Sky Forrester coming. So, all right.
Thank you all for being such a supportive and loving community for me.